is Nik Henry. I am Executive Director of Save the Waves. I came all the way from Santa Cruz, California, which is I think they wanted somebody who could maybe like help with the driving, so they included me in the fellowship this time. But just to tell you a little bit about what we do, as we noted earlier, we protect surf ecosystems across the globe. That's our whole mission. We try to keep it very simple and elegant, and hopefully it doesn't get hacked to bits during this week. But so I want to talk a little bit about why surf ecosystems and what the hell a surf ecosystem is. But first I just want to put surfing in context, because I don't think you always realize what it actually can contribute to conservation, and I think that's where we actually make a lot of strides. Surfing is, there's roughly about 35 million surfers around the world. And I'm sorry, Kevin and Bernie, because when you guys maybe started, there was only like 2 million. But we do have a couple surfers. Anyways, it's this growing constituency that I think actually lines up very well with conservation. It also has an industry behind it, so it's about $11 billion annually in terms of goods but also travel. So this is very, very important. When we talk about surf ecosystems, what is a surf ecosystem? Really, it's that geophysical place where a breaking wave occurs. It's where the land and sea meet, but it's also the plants and animals that depend on the place. And I think what we've heard all throughout the day today, it's also a site of where local communities are dependent on that place for their well-being, but also for their livelihoods. So that's what we're talking about when we're talking about surf ecosystems, are these sort of 3 elements all together. And so we wanted to really focus on the biodiversity aspect of that, the plants and animals where they live. So we did a little bit of an analysis of the globe and looked to see where the sort of top 50 most valuable surfing sites are and where they are in relation to biodiversity hotspots. And we found about an 85% overlap between those areas. So we knew there's actually some biodiversity value in protecting these surf ecosystems. We then also wanted to drill down to a particularly important place, which was Indonesia, and look at the real conservation value of these surf ecosystems. So we did basically an analysis of 10 different indices, everything from seagrass cover to mangrove to coral reef health to primary forest to fisheries productivity, and then overlaid them with access, quality, and consistency of surfing locations around with our protected areas as well. So we can see sort of where the gaps are in those. And so we were able to see where there's a lot of really high surf conservation value. So when we talk about the issues that are facing surf ecosystems, we've kind of categorized 6 different issues that affect these places. Coastal development and sea level rise are probably the biggest exacerbators of these threats. I'm not going to go into all of them because you can see them here. And so that's really what we are tackling. I wanted to tell just a little bit of the story of a place called Punta Conejo that we're working on right now. This is a place in Mexico. This is a very good wave. People travel all over the world to actually be at this place. But we have a significant threat from a huge port development. So this has just come out right now. And why this place is important. Right here is a whole lagoon system. These are all mangrove ecosystem. There's surf tourism and development here, and there's a whole artisan fishing sort of colony right here. So when we're talking about protecting a surf ecosystem, we're talking about protecting all of these things. And so there is actually real threats that are happening to these places around the world that are able to generate both economic vitality for the local community, but also are tremendously important in terms of biodiversity and the ecosystems. So what do? We sort of have a 3-pronged system that we approach with, creating what we're calling surf protected areas, and I'll talk a little bit more about that, working with local communities on stewardship, and then working with individuals to maintain the demand for those places. And so really, we have a pretty defined process. One thing that's amazing about the surf communities worldwide is that there is this demand for conservation protected areas. We don't actually go out very often and work with local communities to say, hey, you should protect your place. They're coming to us. And so I think we heard a lot from different people in the room today. We're like, oh, well, very few local people actually go into the protected areas. Very few people have a demand for this protected area. That's what's unique about these places, is that we actually have a demand for these protected areas. So we're not actually we don't have to do too much demand creation. But as we walk through our process, we partner with locals on the ground everywhere, so it's about aligning incentives around a coalition. So we bring in local governments, we bring in academia, bring local business, we bring in the other NGOs that are working there to build a coalition to then create the protected areas that we're talking about. We work on pretty standard conservation planning mechanisms through using methodology by Conservation Measures Partnership to create a conservation plan and then implement legal and stewardship strategies around that plan. We then work with the community on creating local financing by using that tourism draw to then create another additional livelihood that can help supplement what's already on the ground. A lot of these communities that we work in end up being artisan fishing communities. So as we've seen fisheries go down, we need to be able to diversify those livelihoods as well to guarantee conservation outcomes. And then obviously, one of the biggest elements that we do is we empower locals to monitor their own the outcomes within the plan. And so we have a whole technology framework which the local surfers and surf communities can be involved in actual monitoring and enforcement of those places. So our goal is to expand these surf protected area networks across 10 key regions across the world with a huge, sorry, oops, I can't go backwards.
You can, little one.
There we go. Okay, so we want to be able to expand across 10 areas. What we've already done to date is protected 135 surf ecosystems. We have 200 plus kilometers of coastline under management and 11 of these plans adopted worldwide. And then it's resulted in 95 of these threats either reduced or eliminated. And so our huge goal, our big, hairy, audacious goal out there is to protect 1,000 surf ecosystems by 2025. So, and the way we're going to do this is by scaling as a coalition. So we've partnered with groups like Conservation International, and we're going to use these big NGOs to be able to scale when they have massive amounts of capacity on the ground, but then also working with little groups like our friends in Mexico and Wild Coast and Pro Natura, and in Chile with Fundación Rompientes, and in Indonesia as well with groups like A Liquid Future. So everything we do is as a coalition. And I was going to tell a story about this really cool place, but you can bother me afterwards. All right, thank you guys.